Thank you for joining the PICS webinar on minimizing contractor incidents with 2 strategies. My name is Catherine Gutierrez. I will be your host for this presentation, and our presenter is Dennis Truitt. Dennis comes to us with more than 25 years of experience in safety, health, and environmental work, and he will discuss some of the largest strategies we should be concerned with in looking to minimize our contractor incidents. I want to go over a few things with you quickly before I turn the time over to Dennis. The thing is that we will have an ability for you to ask questions, and we'll invite you to use the chat panel in order to do so. So to ask a question, if you look here, you'll see that all you need to do is open the chat panel. In the Send To drop-down list, select the host. Enter the message that you have into the text box, and then depending on which system you have, you will either click Send if you are a Windows user, or click Enter if you are a Mac user. Questions will be answered at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to start thinking of the questions that you have throughout the presentation, write them down, and we will be sure to answer those at the conclusion of the webinar. There is time dedicated for that. Again, if you do with a question after the presentation is over, simply reply to any of the emails that you've received, and I can forward those along to Dennis, and we'll take care of answering those for you. I'd like to turn the time now over to Dennis to begin our presentation on minimizing contractor incidents.
Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the webinar this morning. We're glad to have you all join us. We're going to talk about minimizing contractor incidents, and I want to specify that we're not talking about general contractors or subcontractors in this case. It's anybody really that's working for you or with you. We'll talk a little bit about multiple employer work sites and talk a little bit about how contractors interact with the clients. But in the pure sense of things, just think about contractors as anybody that's working on your site. So it definitely can be, for those of you that might be general contractors that are calling in this morning, or even folks that use different types of vendors. We're talking about all types in this case. So let's start by looking at a couple of really common strategies. We'll take a high-level approach view to look at these first, and then we'll get into some of the detail. For one, we're going to leverage good, solid programs that lend themselves to leading indicators. These are our pre-contact or pre-impact, if you will, situations that occur in the facilities and our organizations. And what we know from our history and our leading indicators would be number 2, and that's the post-contact or lessons learned. Those things that we do after an incident occurs, after some contact may have occurred, and what we did that information. So we'll get into some of the detail of that. Let's first look at the first leading indicators. And on this slide, I just want to go through some of the examples you can implement in your facilities, in your organizations that will help you with risk assessment and hazard identification and mitigation. And then we'll break down some of these into some additional detail. So JHAS, or job hazard analysis, some are called safety task analysis. There's a number of different ways you can categorize these things, but all the job hazard analysis that lead us to that really good contact identification of the hazards that may be present in the workplace. Your PMs, or your preventative maintenance programs, your pre-use inspections, we're going to talk about a little bit more in detail on those. Audits that you may be using in your facility. Audits can range anywhere from simply safety manual audits all the way down to field level auditing and employee interviews. Out of tag or out of service tagging, which would include your scaffolding, equipment, tools, behavior-based safety programs. We'll talk a bit more about that. Tailgate toolbox safety meetings, and then contractor communication, both ongoing and pre-contract. Very important, and we'll talk some detail on those types of communications. Other processes to consider in leading indicators are near-miss investigations. These can often be overlooked methods for determining the next incident. Can be used very effectively to prevent reoccurrence. So these are some of the ideas that will go along with these leading indicators. Your management systems, your MS provides a systematic way to identify hazards and control risk. Your S can provide for goal setting and measuring performance. Your MS is woven into the fabric of the organization, and it becomes part of your culture. the way people do their jobs. So really good programs that you can find are SMS. Employee competency, determining how individual knowledge and skills and training plays into the safety program, how these can be used to ensure jobs are completed safely. Predict programs, any programs that can generate information or warnings pre-contact can be utilized to minimize loss. So anything that can give us an indicator, and it can be as simple as an office inspection all the way down to a full-blown process safety management inspection that gives that indicator that something might be amiss, something might be a potential hazard. Risk and what the organization is willing to accept. You know, some of the questions we ask: is there a viable business or legal reason not to invest in better controls? Is the digital awareness and ownership being addressed? And screening contractors for baseline compliance. That's obviously one of the big issues that we want to talk about. Programs that are built around helping clients connect with safe contractors. And accurate data is being shared for safe completion of jobs. And we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. Moving to job hazard analysis, predictive maintenance in your PMs and your pre-use inspections. If you've heard me speak before, I talk often about hazard identification mitigation, and one of those big steps is using some of these tools: job hazard analysis, your preventative maintenance programs, your pre-use inspections. And I'll always suggest that you start off using a standard checklist, and that standard checklist should get everybody at a comfort level. And once everyone is really comfortable using that tool, then you can start to drill down and get much more specific into what things that you really are going to address based on the craft, skills, services that your company provides, or the companies that are working for you provide. We can get those crafts and tasks and get more specific and make job hazard analysis, those PMs, those pre-use inspections, all much more specific to the individual task, the individual equipment, or the process that we're working on together. The desired outcome is good sound hazard identification mitigation, with the emphasis on preventing incidents in the first place. So we want to do that, and these are some of the tools we can use in the leading indicator world. Audits are a big piece of what we can do, what all of us can encourage workers on the job and those contractors, subcontractors to look towards to help us improve the job site environment. Provide guidance to succeed. Both of these approaches work as coaching and strengthen your ability to use audits as good leading indicators. When possible, I'm on the wrong page. I'm so sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. When possible, we want to deflect from the pass or fail mode. If we're using that model in our audits, we're going to become, use the term, but say cops in those cases. And what we really want to do is we want to share, we want to use those lessons learned as opportunities to improve. So learn from the audits, you know, and your next step. Which policies and procedures need a refresh? Those audits can tell us that. Implementation of the written program working. Those audits can be very, very good at leading us down that path. How training and employee competency going? Audits are obviously a great way to determine where we're at from a standpoint of competency. Service, defective equipment tagging and warning signs. Again, we're still in the leading indicator world, and we're looking at those things that we've identified pre-contact, or pre-impact, and that's an effective way of doing it. So we don't want to take chances with faulty equipment and tools. We make sure they're tagged and out of service. We want pre-contact warning systems, all tags and signs. They're presented in clear and easy to understand warnings. Inspections that reward and push for hazard identification mitigation. The key really here to having your effective signage system or warning system is make sure everything is legible, easy to see, large enough to warn effectively, translated if necessary, and a maintenance program to ensure the warnings are correct when process changes or equipment is modified. Most of you have probably dealt with the situation where warning tags and signs also become affected by weather, and we have to be aware of a maintenance program to ensure that those warning systems are still in place. All in the vein and in the thought and the process of keeping us safe before an incident occurs and letting us know there's a potential hazard there. programs. While these were hugely productive and very popular, they still have a lot of value and still bring opportunities to identify those hazards pre-contact. Some of the things you can do with behavior-based safety programs is safety observations. You can coaching, discussions, positive recognition. Good employee involvement programs can be built based on these behavior models. Ability to recognize and modify at-risk behaviors, again, pre-contact. So we want to recognize those at-risk behaviors that employees may be displaying, help to modify, help them to change, help them to be more involved from a proactive standpoint. Encourage employee involvement with the company's safety culture and can be effectively used at multi-employer work sites. You don't have to have an observation program that is dedicated to just employees. All employees on the work site can be involved. All employees can participate and hopefully improve those at-risk behaviors. Examples you might be familiar with is the DuPont STOP program or the SWAT program. Those programs are all card-type observation programs that are effective in allowing not only coaching but identifying those at-risk behaviors so we can make changes. Meetings and communications. We want to talk about what's going on in the plant. What's happening in the organization? What can we share? Good examples of that would be your hazard awareness specific to the plant, facility, and process. If you're a process safety management facility or you just want to use some of those key techniques out of the PSM program to look at what are some of the hazards in your facility and how they might affect others. Some of the key elements of PSM, process safety information and sharing that with employees and contractors. Process hazard analysis, operating procedures, training, contractors, mechanical integrity, hot work, management change, incident investigation. These are all things that will, again, help us to identify those hazards or potential hazards before it becomes an impact or a contact situation. Investigation, compliance, trade secrets, participation, and then pre-startup safety review and emergency response planning. Those are obviously all things that we can continue to utilize in a process facility to help us to understand the hazards and also share those hazards with all involved. Hazard analysis, or PHA, that's a set of organized and systematic assessments of the potential hazards associated with an industrial process. And then your hazard and operability analysis, or HAZOPs, often used as a technique for identifying potential hazards in a system and identifying operability problems likely to lead to non-conforming products. So things that will help us identify what are those areas that we need to continue to look at for site-specific hazards and develop those into best practices for sharing and communicating that information. Safety meetings and communication, I mentioned it in the previous slide, emergency action plan, emergency planning. How do we communicate the plant's life-saving rules and emergency procedures to all employees and contractors? How to ensure everybody is comfortable with the process, whether it's to participate in any of the emergency plan or to simply evacuate to a safe zone. We know what those roles are in the event of an incident, or what are the evacuation zones. Citation and or unit process maps with evacuation routes and locations of emergency equipment can be very, very critical in those kinds of situations. Folks need to know where the emergency equipment is located and where to participate in that program. Safety councils. This is a big one. I'm a big proponent of this. In my experience working in the plants, whenever we've had a contractor safety council, it's been a very proactive approach to pairing client employees with contractors, contractors with general contractors and subcontractors, and just basically making sure that our suppliers and our vendors are informed of what's going on in the plant. Again, everything we've talked about up to this point, sharing lessons learned and things of that nature, can be utilized during these meetings. What's working well, what needs improvement. Incident analysis is one of the big things you can do during these programs. As you meet with your contractors and subcontractors, share the incidents. Don't have to go into as much detail as you may want to keep some of it proprietary, but the understanding of what happening and what are our trends and what we're seeing in the plant can really drive where we improve our safety programs. You know, if we identify that most of the incidents are occurring in the night shift, or most of the incidents are occurring right after lunch, or most of the incidents are occurring with new employees that have been with us less than 6 months, you know, whatever that metric is that we can check and verify against, we can help to improve those processes. Improving relationships in a cohesive work environment. We want to make sure that everybody understands what their participation and their responsibility is in working in the plant. Screening and pre-qualification, obviously something we feel we have some expertise in and feel that we can share, but you know, setting the stage for overall compliance. We want to make sure that suppliers have the tools they need to be successful. We want to work with industry experts to help raise awareness and performance. We want to, under the guidance that pre-qualification, not disqualification, is where we're heading. If we coach and we mentor and we can shape, a lot of that can become pre-qualification and not a disqualification situation, and we all win. Our contractors, our subcontractors, and our, again, multi-employer worksite facilities. Let's move and shift gears a little bit and take a look at some of the lagging indicators. Some of the examples of the programs we can utilize or implement. We've got safety statistics. We spoke a little bit about trend analysis, you know, and how we can share trend analysis post-incident, post-contact, post-impact to ensure that we're addressing those situations. If looking at body parts that are injured, we find that fingers and hands happen to be our #1 body part. Then we have good programs that we can put in place to address those. We've got logs, so some historical data. We've got EMR, experience modification rates. They can give us some of that data that we need to determine what's happened in the past. Where are we going? What's the trend telling us? Is the trend telling us that things are getting better? Is the trend telling us that things are getting worse? Where do we need to put our activities? Excuse me. Post-incident communication. This is a big one. An incident occurs in the facility of the plant. There's some type of communication that comes after the incident to ensure that folks are aware and folks are aware of some of the action items that we're taking to prevent reoccurrence. We want to ensure that anything that incident that occurs, that post-contact, we can prevent that from happening again. That's our model and our goal through incident investigation and analysis. And we want to make sure that when we can, we're looking at root cause models. You know, we're making sure that we're really diving down to the real disease of the incident, the incident that occurred, and how we're going to prevent that from occurring in the future. Some of you have seen these. These are the OSHA's top 10 most cited standards year to date through 2013. These were just recently released. Similar to last year as far as the top 10. So we didn't see a lot of real big change there. What we did see is the first 4 in the same positions, and others changed a bit, but all the same categories. It's interesting to see that fall protection is still leading the way. Hazard communication is number 2. Scaffolding, which definitely can play into the fall protection realm of things also. Respiratory protection, electrical wiring methods, industrial trucks, those are our forklifts and our equipment. Ladders is always a big issue. Lockout, tagout, electrical general requirements. So we could combine 9 and 5 and probably push that up to a higher range. Just take away from this that electrical is obviously a very high potential hazard. It's got 2 in the top 10, and if you push them together and add the violations up, you probably you're getting up there in a higher range. Machinery, obviously, that's an area that shortcuts can really bite us. Look at, how do our trends stack up? What can we learn from this? Measurement tools do we have to address trends we see? We've got to take all the tools we can and determine if we're seeing this type of trend throughout industry, what trends are we seeing in our facilities? And if they look close and like to, then we've got some opportunities to help and to some of those programs that can help improve safety in these areas. You may have seen that just recently released, the BLS released their statistics 2012. They're always about a year behind. And the TRC or the TRIR total recordable incident rate or total recordable cases, a little bit from 2012 to 2011 for private industry for both injuries and illnesses. That's a good thing, and we're doing something right. No joke intended against any of the government or local government, but their total recordable incident rate didn't change. It went unchanged from 2011 to 2012, stayed at a 5.6, where the industry was down around 3.5, 3.4. So we're excited that those things are going in the right direction. All right, OSHA Logs, EMR, historical lagging indicators. We've got some opportunities to take some paper that we have, and again, lagging indicators have their place in industry and in peer peer pressure, but at least in the cases where we're looking at how are you performing against your peers. We've got the 300 and the 300A. Get an idea of the types and severity of incidents or recordable injuries and illnesses. Again, your logs are only going to have your recordables, so you're going to have a missing component there of first aids, near misses, things that you might also use in your lagging indicators to determine what's really happening in your facilities. But this is a good way to at least take a look at those types of recordables. They're like in kind, craft, and skill and trade. So we take a look at roofing contractors, how they compare to each other. And a good example of that is, roofing contractors can present a 300A or your summary that can be identical. You could have roofing contractor number A that has 5 incidents, 5 recordable incidents that are shown on his 300A or his or her 300A, and we can have roofing contractor B that has 5 incidents and are displayed on the 300A, but really don't know the detail until you get to the 300. So the 300 log, and we said contractor A, roofing contractor, had 5 incidents that range from a back strain, a neck strain, a wrist injury, a particle in the eye, some things you might assume would happen with contractors who are working in a type of potentially hazardous environment, crawling up ladders, carrying shingles, whatever they might be doing. And you would say, okay, well, there's some history there, but we can fix that surely. But then take a look at contractor B. The 300A again shows 5 incidents, but the 300 log shows all 5 incidents were falls. We got something to look at. We've got some detail that will probably tell us when we compare these two contractors, these two roofing contractors. We've got the ability to see now with the 300 some detail. And when we look at that contractor B, roofing contractor, that had 5 falls, we would assume that they really don't have a good understanding of the fall protection program, the compliance necessary to keep their employees safe, and we want to take a look at who we're going to use and who we're going to help in those situations. Measurement tools that is based on a standard calculation and allows for historical tracking. Improvement or the need to improve, that's obviously going to come out of those types of trends we look at. And your EMR, your experience modification rate, which is a workers' comp insurance based on historical measurement, is quite as solid foundational from a calculation standpoint when we look at the difference between OSHA and EMR, but certainly still an excellent tool to determine historical safety performance of any company and taking a look at those EMR rates and those OSHA rates. Let's take a look at post-contact programs and process. Communication. Again, we're in the lagging indicator realm of things here because something has already occurred, an incident has occurred, impact has happened to the facility, to those employees, and we want to make sure that we share with the organization those lessons learned. The thing we can have happen is repeat incidents over and over, and so the goal will be to share those lessons learned and ensure the organization has a good understanding so that we can prevent future recurrence. Incident analysis and preventing that reoccurrence, we're going to recognize the need for an incident investigation process. If you don't have one of those in your facility, you need to get one. You can start out, again, a real simple boilerplate program and then move into a much more detailed program. There's plenty of off-the-shelf programs out there, too, for incident investigation. Those models, you want to use the ones that use the identification of immediate causes. Those are your substandard practices and conditions, and the identification of root basic causes, the personal factors and job factors. When you can identify those two realms in the incident investigation, you'll have a much better chance of ensuring that you don't have the same incident occur again. You're going to actually look at those standard practices and conditions. Those are the things you can sense, feel, taste, see. There are things that you know exactly what has happened. And then to get under the root or the basic causes, you've got to dig in a little bit. You got to do some interviews, you got to do some investigative work, and those things that will help you to ensure that you're not just seeing it from a Band-Aid standpoint, but you're actually removing the potential disease. All right, so some benefits of leveraging both the leading and lagging indicators. These are the things we've been talking about this morning, and obviously both of these leading and lagging indicator buckets can lead to much better safety programs, improved control, much less incident, and more importantly, incident control or post-contact control and pre-contact control. Improved communication. We want to make sure that there's an opportunity for us to communicate across the board. We talk about multi-employer work sites where contractors are working side by side with clients. Clients are working side by side with contractors and subcontractors and suppliers of all forms and nature. We want those improved client-contractor relationships. This is an opportunity for us to improve that relationship and really build upon those quality contractors and subcontractors that may help us perform our daily work services at the facilities and plants. Improve morale. Morale goes up. It's just a natural effect when safety is going well. Incidents aren't occurring. The morale tends to be much higher. Improve line. This is an obvious one, but we say it. You know, we need to constantly stand up as safety folks and get a soapbox and remind people that this is improved safety saves money. It does improve the bottom line. Awareness raised. We that any of the communications we perform, any of the programs that we run at our facilities, there's behavior-based safety programs, whether it's preventative maintenance, whether job hazard analysis. It teaches and it helps to coach and mentor those folks that are getting involved with the operations of the business. It's business, social, and legally responsible. It puts us in a position where we can step up and say we are doing the right thing. It's sustainable and scalable. Safety is always going to be sustainable and scalable across the board. And really, true, the benefits of a big benefit of leveraging these is when we're able to send all of our employees home to their families and loved ones the same way they came to work each day. We have controlled and eliminated losses at the highest level, and that's not just our process and our profit and our environment, but it's our people, our most important asset that we have in our facilities and our organizations. So, good to start, PICS. PICS is an organization that pre-qualifies contractors and does a pre-screening and qualification program that involves all levels of data, whether it's commercial data and safety data. We're suggesting don't reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good information on successful programs closer than you think. In an industry consortium where supplier data is shared, where more importantly that information is used in lessons learned. For years, our company PICS has consulted with and provided supplier management solutions to the most respected companies in the world. Some of our world-class clients. I'm sure some of these are recognizable, and we're happy to be working with these folks and learning from these folks. And in those races where we're able to coach and mentor, we do the same thing. So, again, I want to thank you all for joining us this morning, and I am going to answer some questions if you have some, and I think we've got a couple that have come in already.
We do. Thank you, Dennis. That was a great presentation. We've got several questions that have come in here, and I want to go through those with you. So I'm going to go ahead and read Dennis the question. He's going to respond. And then, if you come up with a question as we're speaking, please feel free to send it through to the chat section. And if you think of something after the presentation ends, again, you can simply reply to any of the emails that you've received, and you go ahead and or it will go directly to me. So before we jump into those questions, usually the first questions we get is, I'm interested in learning more about what you do and how you do it as a company, or I would like a copy of today's presentation. So either of those come up, just send an email to me, or again, reply to the emails that you've received. My email address is cgutierrez, that's cited.com, or just hit reply. So I'm into the questions now. The first question is, what type of processes exist to qualify contractors as it relates to safety?
So there's a number of processes out there from a pre-qualification standpoint. Obviously, our organization believes in a database and believes in a gathering of information and displaying that information to operators, to clients, so that they can see the detail of all the contractors' information. And that is a step process that allows them to get from, we see data of all of our contractors, to a buy decision. And ultimately, that buy decision is made based on parameters set by you, the client. So as the client says, here's what I need to see on my contractors, and here's some of the generic data that I need to see, I can look at this data and I can determine what the best course of action for me to use, and which contractor is going to be most effective in my facility.
Great, thank you. The second question I have is, what is the best way to be able to view the OSHA 300 and 300A for vendors? Do we have the right to see them?
So in our world, again, in the PICS process, we collect OSHA 300 and 300As. Now, we tell the contractors to obviously remove the names from the 300 log. There's no names on the 300A. That's just a summary of all your incidents. But the 300 log definitely has names and some of the detail of the incident. Nothing that you would consider a robust incident investigation procedure or process, but it has enough information for you to know, like the example I use of the roofing contractors, so that 5 employees were injured, and one of them had a strained back, one of them had a particle in the eye, one of them had a hand injury, things of that nature. And so when we have that information, we do occasionally get pushback from the contractor that says, well, I don't want to share that with you. And when we explain to them, look, you're gonna remove the names from your 300 log before you submit it to us. We're going to display it to your clients, and only your clients, only those clients that you're working for, and they use it to determine trend analysis as well as the contractor should be using it for that. I would say in 99.9% of the times, we come to an agreement, we let that document up, and we have it on display for those operators to see. It works very well from a standpoint of, we're not giving away anything that's proprietary, but we're sharing enough detail with clients so that they can understand what the history that this contractor has in their instance.
All right, and we've got a few more questions to go through. Really quickly before I get into the next one, I see Steve's question, and his question is, what is the average cost to the employer? So Steve, I'm going to move to the next question and ask you if you have a moment, if you can just let us know specifically if you're talking about the pre-qualification process in general, or PICS average cost to the employer. So if you can just let us know that, we'll come back around to that question. So move on to the next one really quickly. Is there any electronic pre-qualification process in oil and gas?
So we service a number of industries. We service oil and gas, we service the power industry, we service the heavy chemical, heavy industry, and we get down into even smaller companies that do that. And our system, the PICS system, is completely electronic. There's no paper. It is a green system. It is available 24/7 to any operator users that are logging in, and we try and ensure that we keep it that way. So it is an electronic system. It's been in development for 10 years, and it's a process that helps us maintain a level of really present this data to the operators in a very easy-to-read format.
So let me circle back to Steve's question before we go on to Roseanne's question. So Steve's question was PICS average charge. So to circle back, his question was, what is the average cost, PICS average cost to the employer? If we go ahead and touch base with you on it, it depends on a couple variables. So I'll skip back to some questions that are more basic. So Steve, what we'll do is we'll touch base with you after and discuss that with you specifically. And I'll move to Roseanne's question. How do you go about viewing the 300 and 300A logs? Do you just ask the contractor?
So part of our process is we have PQF, or pre-qualification form, that is a standard form and that's customized to best practices for the client. So there's a two-part component to the PQF, and then the second piece of what we collect is what we call the annual update, and that's where we ask for the last 3 years of their safety statistics. And during that process, they upload an electronic version of their 300 and 300A, and so we present it to the clients that are using those contractors. So it's very visible, easy to access, and easy to read and go through that process.
Perfect. And then we have a comment that I wanted to share with everyone that I think is a good comment. This came in from Jason. He wanted to share that GCs can also do an establishment search on OSHA's website to review citation history, which is an important thing to mention. So appreciate that, Jason, for having you.
Absolutely. A lot of that is public record, and you'll have an opportunity to see that. You know, there's some discussion now in the government about make some of the OSHA logs public too, and now they're going to start with I think 20 employers who are in heavy industry, and they're doing it annually, and then they're talking about moving to a 10 or more employees in particular industries on a quarterly basis. So, you know, as we get more sophisticated with sharing of information, as long as we can still keep it somewhat proprietary, obviously I think that there's going to be a movement to do some of that.
And the last question I have is, where else can I find additional information on preventing future incidents?
So great question. Obviously, all good questions, but there is lots of information on the internet, and that's an easy answer to say. But you know, I also encourage everyone to participate if they can, or if time allows, in things American Society of Safety Engineers or National Safety Council. Those types of organizations do a lot of trade shows and things that will take up a lot of your time, but they also share a lot of information through some very easy, you know, subscription type processes. I subscribe to a number of myself, and I get a lot of information that just comes to me on a daily basis, and you can discard a little bit if you like, but you know, you look for those things that pop out at you. You know, you look for those things that say leading indicators, lagging indicators, hazard identification, those kinds of things that'll stick out, and you get a lot of good information that way.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That wraps up our questions. Steve, if you want to shout us your phone number, we'll touch base with you personally on your individual question. But I just want to thank everybody really quickly here for joining us. We definitely find safety to be an important driver, and I think as we're moving closer to starting the new year, this is really something that we want to take a look at. It's a great opportunity for us to reevaluate our processes and look and see how we really can minimize contractor incidents. So for those of you who would like a copy of the presentation, again, just go ahead and send me an email. I'm happy to send that out to you. And we look forward to getting any additional questions that you might have as well. Happy to take care of those for you. Hope a wonderful day, and we look forward to speaking with you on our next webinar. Thank you so much.